Revealed, how a black CEO turned a 2.4B insult into an amazing, life-changing triumph. Marcus stood at the podium, heart pounding wildly, lights glaring, a sea of faces watching him expectantly. He had climbed every rung of a corporate ladder that felt impossible to grip at times. Now, he faced the moment that could either break or make him. As the words, a 2.4B insult, sliced through the air, a wealthy investor laughed derisively, his voice dripping with disdain. The laughter echoed in Marcus's ears like thunder, drowning out the cheers of achievement that had once filled his heart. This wasn't just an insult to him, it was an insult to every struggle he and his family had faced. Memories flooded his mind, his mother working late into the night, her weariness painted vividly by her tired smile. He remembered her worn hands cooking dinner for his siblings, squeezing every dollar, every ounce of love into their small apartment. The sacrifices filled him with a fire that could not be extinguished. Now, here he was, a beacon for so many, brought low by a cruel comment. His chest felt tight, as if a weight sat heavy on him. He had worked so hard for this. The sleepless nights, balancing college with part-time jobs, keeping an eye on his younger siblings while promising them the world, a promise he now feared he would betray. The crowd's whispers came like sharp daggers, each one piercing deeper into his resolve. Did he really belong here? Was all of this just a facade built on fragile dreams? But instead of shrinking back, something ignited within him. Marcus remembered the resilience of his mother, the unwavering strength of his community. This investor thought he could break him with a few cruel words, but the world had underestimated him. He would not allow this moment to define him. It would propel him forward. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With his passion transformed into purpose, Marcus stepped away from the podium, his decision clear. He reached out to his community, and they answered, united by shared struggles and dreams. Together, they rallied, creating a movement that bucked the system. He saw faces like his, voices rising in unison, demanding equity and representation. The warmth of their support glowed in his chest, lifting him like a celebration in the neighborhood, but the pressure was mounting. His attempts to reach out to the investor for reconciliation turned into chaos, opening a Pandora's box of confrontations. Would he compromise his integrity just to win back those words, or would he stand firm for the ideals that had shaped him? The stakes were growing higher, and doubt crept in like a cold tide. What if he lost everything? He leaned on his family, the ones who had endured the struggle with him, reminding him of the brighter days ahead. The moment of reckoning was near. Could he reclaim his dignity and reshape success on his own terms? The path before him was foggy, but Marcus felt hope stirring. The fight had just begun. The air crackled with anticipation as Marcus gathered his thoughts. He stepped off the platform, still buzzing from the backlash. His heart raced. He felt the eyes of the crowd following him, curious, hungry for his next move. But he had no time to dwell on their expectations. Behind him, the investor who had launched the storm remained smug, but Marcus was no longer shackled by doubt. He had turned those harsh words into fuel. Marcus took a deep breath, standing in front of his community, a united front forming as they charged forward. Conversations erupted, voices rising in passionate discourse. Ideas bounced around like sparks, igniting hope and clarity. This isn't just about me, he reminded them, it's about us, about all of us who have been told we're not enough. Images of his mother flashed in his mind again. Her indomitable spirit urged him on. He saw her weary eyes filled with dreams, frustrated but determined. Those dreams were his to carry forward now. The crowd echoed his realization this was not just a fight for respect, but a battle for a future that was fair and just. He scheduled a town hall, wanting to unite his community and make their collective voices stronger than ever. Flyers adorned the neighborhood, bright colors and bold letters inviting everyone to join. "Bring your stories," they urged. "Together, we are unstoppable." The night of the town hall was electric. People filled the room, their faces gleaming with anticipation. Families gathered, shoulders squared, ready to share their struggles. Fear melted away as voices cracked open the silence, sharing experiences of triumph, pain, and perseverance. Each story tied them closer together, weaving a tapestry of resilience. Marcus felt a wave of emotion, a pulse of possibilities beating through the air. He took his place in front of the crowd, a mixture of nerves and excitement coursed through him. He opened his mouth, the words spilling forth, "We are not just a statistic or a punchline. We're the dreamers, the builders, the community who refuses to be sidelined." His voice rang loudly, piercing through the doubt. Cheers erupted, each murmur feeding his conviction. Yet, just as momentum surged, a stark reminder of the challenges ahead flickered through his thoughts. What if this truly changed nothing? What if they faced backlash instead of support? The dangers of standing out loomed large. His phone buzzed in his pocket, drawing him back. A message from an ally. "We need a strategy. It's great to share our stories, but we also need a plan to challenge the system head-on." Strategy. It was a reality call. Sharing was only the beginning. He needed to create tangible change. He gathered a few of the steady voices around him, figuring out how they could approach the investor, how they could shift not just the narrative but the very landscape they were fighting against. A sense of urgency swelled within Marcus. This was his chance to make a lasting impact, but the road ahead was fraught with fear and uncertainty. As he looked at the people surrounding him, he knew the journey would demand more than he had ever given. But he was ready. How did they plan to face the very investor who mocked all they stood for? What must Marcus sacrifice to ensure his community's voice is heard? The peaks and valleys of this fight had just begun. The following morning, Marcus woke before dawn, a storm of thoughts swirling through his mind. He lay in bed, staring up at the ceiling, recalling the faces and stories shared the night before. Each narrative was a thread from their shared history, a raw and beautiful tapestry sewn together by their collective pain and hope. This was more than just a community meeting, it was a rallying cry, a silent agreement to fight together. As sunlight crept through the window, he grabbed his laptop, intent on drafting the beginnings of a strategy. His fingers hovered above the keyboard, hesitating. What could they possibly do against the weight of the investors and the system that seemed intent on keeping them in their place? It felt daunting, yet a spark ignited inside him. They had something stronger on their side, unity. He outlined their first steps. They needed to organize, present a united front, and take the narrative directly to those who could help transform their community. But who? Marcus thought of the businesses and local leaders who had once shown support. He needed to reach out to them, make them see the power in numbers, the strength of shared stories. He poured himself a cup of coffee and sipped, letting the warmth fill him. On the wall, a framed photo of his mother caught his eye. Her smile reminded him why he had to fight. She had seen potential in him that he sometimes doubted. He needed to prove her right, not just for himself, but for everyone counting on him to lead. The day progressed, and Marcus met with a small group of trusted allies. They gathered around his kitchen table, the ambience filled with the scent of fresh coffee and anxious energy. Each of them shared their ideas, their voices intertwining. They brainstormed slogans, plans for protests, and persuasive narratives that could unseat the powerful investor's complacency. As the conversation flowed, Marcus felt hope blossom in his chest. This was it. This was their moment to come together. "Let us hit the ground running," he proposed, excitement threading through his voice. "We need to organize a public response, something visible. A protest that can't be ignored. We'll make sure it's covered in the news. They might dismiss our words, but they won't be able to ignore our presence." Heads nodded in agreement, the sunlight catching fierce determination in their eyes. They started mapping out social media campaigns, rally details, and personal stories to share. They planned the logistics, and just like that, a plan began to take shape, but even as they spoke of action, doubt crept back in. Marcus couldn't help but wonder how far they could realistically push against the tide. What if they were met with hostility? What if the investor retaliated harder than he expected? Would this protest only bring more harm to those they were trying to uplift? Yet, as he glanced around the table, seeing the trust and belief etched on their faces, he felt the weight of those questions lighten. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the collective future they aimed to build. The meeting adjourned with a feeling of unity hanging thick in the air. They had committed to take a leap together, ready to face whatever storm lay ahead. But the doubts still loomed large, lingering like shadows in the corners of Marcus's mind. Later, as he lay in bed, he received an unexpected email that jolted him awake. It was from the investor requesting a meeting to discuss their grievances. Was this a chance to negotiate, or was it a trap? His heart raced again. What would he say? What would he risk for his people? And as he pondered the possibilities, the future felt more uncertain than ever. Would this be the moment that defined him, or would it slip through his fingers like so many before? The stakes were higher now, and there was no going back. What would Marcus choose to do next? Marcus couldn't shake the feeling of being on a precipice. The email from the investor felt like a personal challenge, an ultimatum wrapped in corporate jargon. He paced his small living room, his mind racing with the potential implications of this meeting. Would he find a way to turn the investor toward their cause, or would he be walking into a trap? As he prepared for the meeting, he looked over the plans they had sketched together. The protest was still set to happen, but now it would serve as a backdrop to this high-stakes conversation. Would the investor be open to their stories, or would it be a cold negotiation, driven only by profit? That afternoon, he slipped into a crisp white shirt, the fabric still smelling faintly of the laundry detergent his mother used to buy. He glanced in the bathroom mirror, running his hands over his hair as if it could tame the nervous energy bubbling inside him. Deep breaths. It was just a conversation, he reminded himself, though he knew it was anything but. When he arrived at the sleek downtown office building, the stark architecture felt intimidating. It embodied everything he had come to resent: the cold, clinical design at odds with the warmth of his community. Stepping through the automated doors, he was greeted by polished floors and brightly lit conference rooms, the smell of fresh coffee mingling with antiseptic cleanliness. Just beyond the reception area, he could hear the hum of conversations and the soft click of keyboards, the lifeblood of the corporate world. Marcus Johnson, here for the meeting, he announced, straightening his posture, determination shining through his nerves. The receptionist, barely looking up from her computer, nodded and pointed toward an elevator. "They're expecting you on the 10th floor." His heart pounded as the elevator doors slid closed. Each floor marked a descent through his doubts, from uncertainty to the stark reality of what he needed to accomplish. When the doors opened again, he stepped out into a modern conference room, the air thick with tension. At the far end of the long table sat the investor, flanked by a couple of associates. Formal suits, impassive expressions. One of them offered a perfunctory nod. Marcus managed a tight smile. He reached for the chair across from them, feeling the weight of their gazes, judgment laced with curiosity. "Thank you for coming," the investor started, his voice clipped and icy. "We've received some pushback regarding your community's stance. I wanted to get your perspective directly." Marcus recalled the stories shared by his neighbors, their struggles and their dreams. He inhaled deeply, trying to find the right words, the right way to bridge the gap between their worlds. "Thank you for meeting with me. I believe there's a way forward that can benefit us all. Our community isn't just a neglected area, it's filled with potential that's being ignored." The investor leaned back, eyebrows raised, a hint of skepticism in his eyes. "Potential, you say? And what exactly does that mean in financial terms?" Marcus's pulse quickened. "It means empowered people. Real investments in our community could lead to increased property values, business opportunities. It's more than just charity. It's an investment in growing the local economy. As he spoke, he could feel a subtle shift in the atmosphere. The investor's brow furrowed slightly, sparking a flicker of interest. But just as quickly, that flicker dimmed, replaced by a guarded expression. "Let us cut to the chase," the investor said, folding his arms. "Some of your community members are spreading a narrative that could hurt our reputation. How do you propose to manage that?" The question hung heavy in the air. Marcus realized this was a moment for truth, not just for himself but for everyone who had trusted him. By telling our story. Showcasing what our community can achieve when given the right opportunities. If you want to avoid backlash, maybe your best strategy isn't hiding but listening. As the words left his mouth, he felt a sense of clarity wash over him. This was more than just a negotiation, it was a chance to forge a connection and stand up for the people who believed in him. He waited for a reaction, heart racing, the silence stretching until it felt unbearable. Would they see the truth in his words, or would they dismiss him outright? And just as the tension reached its peak, the investor leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Let us talk about your next protest. What if I told you we could partner instead?" Marcus's breath caught in his throat. What did that mean? Was it an opportunity or just another ploy? Hope and caution tangled in his chest as he struggled to decipher their intentions. The stakes had suddenly skyrocketed, and with that uncertainty came the realization that the battle was far from over. Would he still be able to rally his community together if this path turned out to be a dead end? The moment was fragile, dangling between potential triumph and utter failure. And as each second tipped by, Marcus knew one truth: everything depended on his next choice. Marcus's mind raced as the investor's proposition lingered in the air. Partner instead? The word spun around in his head, entwining hope with trepidation. He had envisioned the protest as a rallying cry, a moment for the community to unite, for their voices to be heard loud and clear. But now, there was a new path sprawling before him, one he hadn't anticipated. "What do you mean by that?" he asked, his voice steadier than he felt. The investor's posture relaxed, as if they were finally ready to engage. "Let us reframe the narrative," the investor said, leaning forward, their eyes gleaming with a calculated intensity. "We can create a project that showcases the community, but in a way that also aligns with our financial interests. Think of it as a win-win." Marcus shook his head slightly, grappling with the duality of what he was hearing. "You want to exploit our struggles to make a profit?" The rawness of his words cut through the conference room's tense atmosphere. No, of course not." The investor's dismissal felt rehearsed, almost defensive. "We want to invest in your community's vision, but there has to be a marketable angle. Something that drives interest from the public and investors alike." "Marketable," Marcus echoed, trying to digest the implications. The investor had summed up everything wrong about their ways of thinking. To them, people's lives were reduced to numbers, monetized opportunities. Yet, standing there, he also felt the weight of his own people's struggles too real to be branded mere market strategies. "What about listening to our stories? Giving us the platform we deserve?" Marcus said, feeling the burn of frustration. This was not what the community had envisioned. A partnership should be about collaboration, about growing together. The investor tilted his head, a slight smile forming, as if Marcus had struck a chord with him. "Exactly. We want your stories, your passion. Bring your community leaders into the conversation. Let us mold this together." Marcus's heartbeat quickened. "And what do you get out of this?" He could feel skepticism sharpening his tone, but he pushed it down. His worry was real. Their history showed that outsiders rarely brought anything good. The credibility of a local partnership. A project people can rally behind. "We need an image makeover, and you've got the voice to help us and to help your community thrive." The offer was tantalizing, but it felt like walking a tightrope. Could he really trust them? And if he took this leap, would he end up letting everyone down? While he battled his inner turmoil, the tension slipped back into the air, knotting his stomach. Do you think people will buy into that? He needed to hear it, as if saying it aloud would crystallize the path forward. Absolutely. There was confidence in the investor's tone, and it flickered a thread of possibility in Marcus's chest. Together, we can tell that story in a way that diversifies our interests and uplifts your community. In an instant, the room grew larger, the stakes more profound. Whispers of how this could change everything started rising in the back of his mind. The stories of families struggling, dreams left unfulfilled, they could frame this narrative. A partnership could mean direct support for local initiatives. But doubts creased his brow. He could already envision the protesters, the faces of his neighbors asking why they would trust someone who had previously challenged their right to exist peacefully in their community. Would any deal signed by the investor overshadow their voices, or spin their struggles into a palatable display for the media? Before he could voice his concerns, he caught the investor's gaze holding steady. I know it's a lot to consider. But we need your community's involvement, that's the only way this will succeed. What do you say? Are you willing to discuss it? The question hung suspended, heavy like the weight of years of struggle and resilience. Marcus began, uncertainty creeping into his voice, but he couldn't finish his thought. The enormity of the decision loomed like a storm cloud over him. Could he navigate this path? Would it truly lead to the change they all needed, or would it send him spiraling into a sea of regret? The fragile lines between negotiation and betrayal blurred, and with one deep breath, he stole a glance at the door, a lingering question poised on the tip of his tongue. Suddenly, he heard the voices outside growing louder, the distant chants of supporters preparing for the protest. The time was running out. Let me think about it, he finally said, resolve settling in the pit of his stomach. The investor nodded, expectations shimmering in their eyes, but the quiet resolve within him wrestled with the roar of the crowd outside. The decision felt like it was pulling him apart. His community deserved more than just a promise, they needed a true commitment. As he exited the conference room, the noise of the impending protest enveloped him. Would the investor truly listen, or was this just a strategy to quiet dissent? Each step he took, leading towards the cacophony of voices, only deepened the uncertainty. Could he forge a lasting change for his community, or was he dancing on the edge of betrayal? In the throes of this discovery, a flicker of hope ignited, revealing that the journey was just beginning. The stakes were high, but Marcus also felt something building inside him. Courage. As he emerged into the fray, the question loomed larger than ever: what price was he willing to pay for the dream they all shared? Marcus stepped into the heart of the protest, the streets alive with energy and passion. A sea of colorful signs waved in the air, each one told a story, their stories. This is our home. Our voices matter. The chants surged around him, a powerful tide that nearly drowned out his thoughts. He felt the pulse of unity surround him and grasped the enormity of the moment that he moved among the crowd, nodding at familiar faces, feeling the emotion everywhere, fingers held aloft to the sky, eyes fierce and determined. Yet buried beneath that spirit was a question that nagged at him. Would aligning with the investor change the narrative they had fought to create? Marcus. Over here. A voice cut through the noise, and he turned to see Angela, a key community leader, waving him over. She radiated strength, a presence that commanded attention. Did you talk to them? She asked, concern furrowing her brow. I did, he replied, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. But I need time to think. Her gaze narrowed. Are you sure they're on our side? We can't trust outsiders after everything we've been through. I know, he said quietly. But what if this is different? What if we can finally make a change? Angela chewed her lip, clearly torn. We need to protect our community, Marcus. People are counting on us to be their voice. He felt that weight again, the pressure of expectation, the hope in their eyes. Could he really trust an outsider to uplift those stories instead of exploiting them? His heart raced, almost drowning out the chants around him. He thought again of the investor's words, a persistent echo that twisted in his gut. Let us talk to the others, he decided, needing their opinions. Together, they made their way to a small gathering under a massive oak tree, the heart of the protest site. Faces turned to them as Marcus spoke, the warmth of the sun mixing with the colder gust of uncertainty flitting through the group. I met with the investor, he shared, choosing his words with care. They want to partner with us to reshape our narrative. But there are risks. I need to know if you feel this could lead to something good, or if it's just a way to silence our voices. Silence filled the air, heavy and electric. A man in the back, Ray, finally spoke up, his voice steady yet tinged with fear. What will they gain, Marcus? We've seen too many promises broken. I understand the skepticism, Marcus replied, trying to keep his tone reassuring. But what if this is an opportunity to finally create something that supports us? To make our stories known? The crowd murmured, uncertainty rippling as they exchanged glances. The weight of their past hung in the air like a dark cloud. Then a woman named Lucia stepped forward, her voice quiet but fierce. They'll take our words and make money off them. We need to protect our history, our struggles. They don't get to profit from our pain. Marcus nodded, feeling the truth of her words sink in. What if, he said cautiously, we only partner under conditions that ensure our community benefits? Real support, not just a show. Ray shook his head. And what if that doesn't happen? What if we go in and end up worse off? We can't risk that. An eruption of voices began, some agreeing with Ray, others considering Marcus's proposal. The debate became a whirlwind, moving faster than he could keep track of. The disconnect settled deep in Marcus's heart. He could see their fears, their hopes. Yet the possibilities danced tantalizingly at the edges of their discussion. Suddenly, Angela raised her voice above the din. We have to be united. If we want to explore this offer, we should demand transparency. They need to know this is not just a transaction. This is our fight. Nods of agreement rippled through the crowd, igniting a flame of determination. Marcus felt adrenaline surge. They were ready to protect what was theirs, but also open to shaping a future. The vision is ours, he urged, passion swelling inside him. But we have to stay vigilant. Our stories can fuel change if we control how they're told. As chants started again, he knew. They were stepping into uncharted waters with a flicker of hope lighting their way. But was hope enough? Could they truly maintain their voices in a partnership that some still deemed dangerous? Before he could ponder further, a shrill whistle pierced the air. The protest had drawn the attention of local officials, and the atmosphere shifted from excitement to caution. Marcus felt a tightening in his chest. This was it, waiting was not an option anymore. What are we willing to fight for? He shouted into the throng, recognizing the urgency yet served by fear. The answer might define everything. Would they stand united, rallying for something bigger than each individual's dream? Or would fear conquer their resolve, dimming the flicker of hope in Marcus's heart? This moment could carve out their future, but at what cost? With the distant echo of heavy boots approaching, something hung in the balance, a question posed to the crowd that felt like fate itself. Would they be ready to face the consequences? The crowd shifted, eyes darting toward the approaching figures in uniform. Tension crackled in the air. Marcus felt the blood rush to his ears as the heavy boots echoed closer, a rhythmic reminder of authority and potential upheaval. Stay together! Angela shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. The people instinctively moved closer, shoulders pressing together as they formed a united front. Marcus's heart raced, thrumming along with the chants. Would their unity be enough to deter the fears that loomed over them? Will you fight for your rights? Angela continued. Will you fight for your stories? A surge of voices answered her, shouting in unison, yes. The chant quickly transformed into a powerful melody of resolve. This is our home. Our voices matter. Each refrain intensified the energy, the air transformed into a palpable force that challenged the encroaching authority. Marcus stood at the forefront, feeling the heat of their collective passion. But fear still clawed at him. He looked to Ray, standing beside him, his face a mask of worry. "This isn't right, Marcus," Ray shouted over the noise. "They won't just back down. This could turn violent. Are we supposed to just shrink away?" Marcus replied, his voice adamant. "This is our moment. We have to stand and be heard." As he spoke, the leading officers halted and regarded the crowd with a mixture of irritation and wariness. One officer raised a bullhorn. "Disperse immediately or face arrest." His voice boomed, an unyielding command. A ripple of uncertainty folded through the crowd. Marcus felt it hit him like a wave, but he fought against it. "This is what they want," he urged. "They want to silence us. But we won't let that happen." Angela continued to rally those around her, weaving through the group like a thread stitching them closer together. "Don't back down. Fight for your stories, for the truth." The air vibrated with the intensity of conflicting emotions: fear and hope, courage and hesitation. Marcus felt the tremors rise within him, his brow furrowing as he considered their vulnerable position. Yet he knew deep down they couldn't retreat now. Not when their voices were so close to being heard. "Are you ready?" he called out, letting the question hang heavy in the air. A courageous woman near the front lifted her sign higher, her face lit with fierce determination. "Are you with us?" she shouted. "We are." The crowd roared back, a tidal wave of energy surging through every person. But at that moment, dark clouds loomed over them, quite literally, as a gust of wind swept through, stirring dust and papers while sending the officers glancing nervously at one another. This was no ordinary protest, it was a storm brewing, and everyone could sense it. Just then, Marcus caught a glimpse of an unfamiliar figure slipping through the chaos, eyes scanning the crowd with intent. His heart thumped loudly, curiosity pulling him away from the tumult around him. Who were they, and what were they doing here? The officer's voice rattled through the air again, threatening impending consequences if they did not disperse. Marcus turned back to the crowd, reading the trepidation in their eyes amidst the fervor. Could they press on, or was this truly a point of no return? He had to make a choice. Should they push forward or hold their ground? The crowd's anxious energy was electric and overwhelming, an answer building at the edges of hope and fragile trust, and then, from the back, he heard a voice calling to him. "Marcus." He turned, heart racing. It was Angela, her eyes wide with alarm. "We need to decide now. What do we do? Let us." With determination swelling in his chest, he squared his shoulders. "We fight for our voices," he proclaimed. "No one can take that from us." The echo of his words stirred the crowd again, but doubt flickered within him. The ground was shifting. The stakes had risen, and with them, the question remained: would they stand together and risk it all, or would they let fear shatter what they had fought so hard to create? Each face reflected a flicker of resolve and trepidation. Caught in a moment that could change everything. Just then, a deafening crash echoed from a street corner nearby. People gasped, turning to see what had happened. It was a signal, a turning point. What would it mean for them? Would they become the voice of change, or would this moment slip through their fingers like sand? The crowd was frozen for a split second, every heartbeat pounding like a drum. The noise from the crash echoed through the air, slicing through the chants and resolve. Marcus's breath quickened as he strained to see what lay beyond the sea of bodies. Fear and anticipation hung heavy, the weight of the moment almost suffocating. "It's happening!" Ray's whisper trembled beside him, eyes darting nervously. "Stay focused," Marcus murmured, trying to steady both their nerves. The air was electric, charged with uncertainty. It wasn't just about the officers anymore, it was about them, every person standing for what they believed in. Angela's voice cut through the murmurs. Keep those signs up. We can't let this moment break us. Her energy surged through the crowd, igniting the fire within. Somewhere at the back, another shout erupted. Look! A man pointed, his arm outstretched. Heads turned, curiosity fluttering through the throngs like a bird taking flight. Marcus followed the motion, spotting a line of police officers advancing, their faces steely, eyes hardened. He swallowed hard. They're coming for us, he said, urgency creeping into his voice. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, people shifting on their feet, their previous bravado fading. But then, out of the corner of his eye, Marcus saw the familiar figure stepping forward, the one who had slipped through moments before. It was Elena, his childhood friend, now wearing a press badge. Cameras hung around her neck, ready to capture the moment. Marcus! She yelled, waving desperately. I need your voice. Just a few words for the camera. Now? He exclaimed, a mix of pride and panic swelling in his chest. This isn't the time, Elena. But she shook her head, determination lighting her features. No, this is exactly the time. We need every angle recorded. Let me show the world what's happening here. There was something in her sincerity that pulled him closer. The moment was slipping away, yet here was an opportunity to channel his fear into a message, not just for them, but for everyone listening. He took a deep breath, glancing back at Angela, who was now urging the crowd to stand strong. With a nod from Angela, he moved slowly towards Elena, trapping his fear beneath layers of resolve. The chaos around them felt irrelevant. This needed to be said, and he needed to be the one to say it. Okay, he called out, stepping in front of the camera, his heart racing. People need to know that we are not going away quietly. It doesn't matter who stands against us, we are here to fight for our rights. As he spoke, he could feel the crowd lean in, drawn by his conviction. This is our story, our fight. We will not let our voices be silenced. A ripple of energy surged through those gathered, and the chant erupted again, louder than before. We will not be silenced. People raised their signs higher, and for a brief moment, fear turned into solidarity. Under the lens, Marcus felt weightless, free. But that moment was shattered when the officers advanced with shields raised. The fear they tried to escape was now stalking them. Marcus! Angela shouted, her eyes wide again, pulling him back to reality. We need to stay together. Shield up. The line of officers began to form a blockade, and panic rippled through the crowd. People grasped each other's hands, but Marcus could see the uncertainty flickering in their faces. Then, a sudden flash ignited from Elena's camera, a stark contrast against the gray sky. You've got this, Marcus. She encouraged. Show them your spirit. The reality of their situation crashed back in like a wave. They were on the cusp of something transformative or destructive. He needed a plan, something to galvanize them all. Look, he shouted, voice steady despite the chaos. If we don't stick together, it ends here. This is not just about us. It's about everyone watching, everyone who has ever felt powerless. Would this push them to stand firm, or would it scatter them into the night? The lines were drawn, and they were on the brink. His eyes scanned the crowd, searching for any flicker of defiance. Amidst the unease. But all he saw were faces pale with fear, hearts caught between hope and danger. Could they face the storm and emerge stronger, or would this pivotal moment define them in a way they could never return from? The answer teetered precariously, ready to either ignite their passion or bury it under weighty despair. As he stood there, heart pounding in sync with the crowd, he felt the question looming larger than ever: if they faced the officers head-on, would they inspire change or sow chaos? The officers moved closer, their shields gleaming ominously under the dim light. Marcus's heart raced as he caught glimpses of fear crossing the faces around him. The weight of the moment pressed down on him, heavy and suffocating. "Stay together," he urged again, finding the strength in his voice. "We're stronger when we're united. Don't let them break our spirit." The air crackled with tension, and for a heartbeat, the crowd responded. A few timid voices repeated his words, gaining momentum. "United. Stronger." They chanted, though it was soft at first, like a whisper straining to break through. Facing the officers, Marcus could feel the unease in the crowd shift slightly, as if hope was beginning to anchor itself in the storm. But would that hope be enough? Then, through the shouting and confusion, he spotted a familiar face, Ray, looking more terrified than before. "Marcus, what do we do?" he shouted, his voice nearly drowned by the swell of the crowd. "Stick with me. We have to hold the line," Marcus replied, trying to project calm amidst the rising panic. "If we stand firm, they can't push us back." His pulse echoed in his ears. The officers halted, forming a neat wall in front of them, a chilling silence rolling in as uncertainty hung on the breeze. Marcus held his breath, eyes scanning the line of uniforms. A glimmer of recognition flashed across one officer's face, the intensity of the moment shifting. It wasn't just about the badge anymore, it was about humanity, the fragile connection that flowed through them, linking every person on each side of the line. "Remember," he called out, "this battle is bigger than us, it's for everyone who ever felt unheard." Elena's camera flashed again, capturing the courage standing mere feet away from the composed threat of the officers. "This is it," she urged him silently, her eyes wide with anticipation. Then, against the tension, a voice broke free from a corner of the crowd. "We're not your enemy," a young woman shouted, stepping forward. "We're here to be heard." The crowd rippled in support. Her words came like a spark in dry grass, igniting the energy within them. "Yes. We're human." Voices joined, escalating, as if the very winds carried their chant away to every corner of the earth. The officers exchanged glances, the order to charge momentarily stalled. Marcus seized the opportunity, stepping forward. "Together, we are powerful. Together, we are heard." The chants grew louder, echoes feeding off the energy being created, reviving the spirits of the wavering crowd. "Not your enemy. Not your enemy." For a brief moment, time suspended. The space between them and the officers seemed to pulse with possibility. The tension, however, was still palpable, thin enough to slice through. And then, the first officer raised his hand, signaling something. Marcus's heart skipped, dread pooling in his stomach. Were they prepared to push on? Did they think violence was the answer? Just then, out of the blue, a child's voice rang out loud and clear. "Please don't fight." A small girl was crying, tears streaming down her innocent face. "We just want to be friends." The entire crowd fell silent, the simplicity of her words cutting through the chaos like a knife. Fear broke. Marcus felt the shift, a wave of compassion washing over everyone present. Could this little girl be the influence that turned the tide? In that moment of silence, everything felt fragile yet profoundly united. Then it happened. A very slight nod from the first officer, and suddenly, the shields lowered. "Let us talk," one officer finally spoke. The moment hung as Marcus and the crowd collectively gasped, unsure if this was an illusion, but as the chants faded, one undeniable truth consumed Marcus's thoughts: what if they finally, really had a chance? What was about to unfold? And as the crowd stepped forward, uncertainty began to drift away, replaced by cautious hope. But how would they navigate this new territory? Marcus stood at the brink, anticipation and anxiety colliding within him. "Let us talk." The officer's words hung in the air, floating on the wind like a beacon of possibility. The tension that had gripped the crowd shifted slightly, as uncertainty mingled with the faint glimmer of hope. His heart pounded in his chest, thumping a rhythm of resolve. He turned to Angela, who nodded, her expression fierce yet hopeful. This was their moment. We'll show them we won. To be silenced. He shouted, letting the words carry his conviction. The crowd surged forward, eyes wide, voices ready as they took cautious steps toward the officers. The distance between protesters and authority narrowed. It felt both terrifying and exhilarating. This battle was never just about one person, it was about all of them. Tell them our stories. A voice called out, echoing Marcus's thoughts. He raised his hands to quiet the thrumming masses. Remember why we're here. We're not against them, we're asking to be heard. Somewhere in the throng, Ray stepped up next to him, his face alight with newfound bravery. We deserve representation. We have dreams too. As the soldiers softened their stances, the warmth of the crowd melted away the frustration that had taken root in Marcus's heart. The power of their unity sparked something special, an energy that could not be denied. In that pivotal moment, Elena pushed through the sea of people to stand by Marcus. This is monumental. Show them your strength, she urged, her camera rolling, capturing every heartfelt moment. The officer who had spoken stepped closer. We can listen, but we need to ensure the peace, he stated, his voice wavering slightly. Marcus stepped forward, drawing strength from the faces around him. We're not here to incite violence, but we will not be quieted anymore. We want to work together to build a future instead of simply accepting defeat. The response was immediate. Together. The crowd echoed. There was a sense of camaraderie that enveloped them, a force that pulsed through their veins. As they exchanged looks, an older man called out. Together, we can make real change. But we need a seat at the table, not just empty promises. Marcus met the officer's gaze, pouring conviction into his words. If we're willing to stand here, can we not find common ground? Our stories are real. Our struggles are real. But so is our hope for a better future. The officer's eyes softened as if recognizing the truth in Marcus's plea. He turned to his colleagues, exchanging cautious glances, and then nodded slowly. Let us take this conversation out of here into a safer space. What are your demands? Relief washed over Marcus like a warm wave. They were truly being heard. Here, he began, we want support for job training programs, funding for local businesses, and representation on projects that will affect our community. Each demand felt like a building block, stacking their hopes on top of each other, forging a bridge between their aspirations and what the community had been denied for too long. The officer raised his brow, compiling their requests mentally. I can take these to my superiors. I can promise you that we'll consider them with serious intention, and we can set up a meeting to discuss next steps. Gasps rippled through the gathering, and Marcus felt the pulse of hope igniting. Will you have our voices at that meeting? He asked, the tension in his chest slowly easing. Yes, we will. With that, the energy shifted. Waves of applause erupted, swelling like the tide crashing against the shore. Their voices, once shouts of defiance, transformed into cheers of victory, a sound that resonated deeply in Marcus's heart. As he locked eyes with Angela, tears began to prick at the corners of her eyes. We did it. We actually did it. She exclaimed, and he couldn't help but smile. More voices joined in, expressing gratitude not just for this moment but for each other. They had come together, faced fear head-on, and carved out space for their stories. The chanting resumed, but this time it felt different, empowered. We will not be silenced. We will not be silenced. That night, as they dismantled the protest under the star-speckled sky, Marcus knew that change had arrived, but the real journey had only just begun. Together, with every shared dream and every collective spirit, they were ready to build a future where hope reigned above all. He grasped Angela's hand tightly, his heart full. This is just the beginning, he whispered, feeling the warmth of community pulsing around him. As they walked, the weight of doubt lifted, revealing a path charged with possibility, solidarity, and the unwavering courage to refuse to be silenced ever again. Their stories would echo, resounding through years yet to come. If this story struck a chord within you, it's time to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and get this message out there. Comment below with your thoughts on this incredible transformation, and don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see the power of unity. Remember, only true fans know the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.